Is there any proof at all that Kawhi Leonard did any work at all to earn that $28 million? Anything other than basketball, play basketball for the Clippers?
Which he's only kind of done, I would argue, the basketball part.
Throwing
That's
shots.
my favorite part, is that typically in a story like this, you say, okay, there's no evidence, and that's a problem. Here, the absence of evidence is kind of the evidence. Like, the reason I found out about this is because in the bankruptcy filing, you see the list of creditors. And buried there, which was publicly available, by the way, was this line item that said $7 million outstanding to KL2 Aspire LLC. And I looked up what that was in the California Secretary of State database, and it was, oh, Kawhi Leonard's LLC.
Pablo Torre breaks down the Kawhi Leonard and Steve Ballmer scandal. Check out what he had to say, and then I'll come back with my comments.
Okay. 2019, the NBA investigates, okay, how did the Clippers get Kawhi Leonard? They found no proof, right? This was something that the NBA was infuriated by around the league. It was the Lakers, it was the Raptors, everybody wondering, how did Steve Ballmer and the Clippers get Kawhi Leonard? We have an episode that explains in, I think, like 4K detail how it happened in terms of how Steve Ballmer, the owner of the Clippers, has paid Kawhi Leonard off of the books using, and this is where the story gets wild, because this is about the extension Kawhi signs in 2021, but it involves, true to the alleged setting that I'm in, two Harvard graduates, two Democratic politicians, starting what turns out to be a $2.3 billion valuated scheme around climate change and saving the planet that brings in as the following a roster of endorsers: Robert Downey Jr., Drake, Leonardo DiCaprio, Cindy Crawford, Orlando Bloom. The list goes on. What has never been reported, though, until today is the most important, most highly paid endorsement deal they signed, which was more than 4 times the combined value of every other celebrity. And that endorsement deal was signed with one of probably, I would say, the worst pitchmen when it comes to like good athletes in America, and it's Kawhi Leonard. And this was a company that was funded to the tune of $50 million by Steve Ballmer, another Harvard graduate, and the owner, of course, the richest owner in all of celebrity. And that endorsement deal was signed with one of probably, I would say, the worst pitchmen when it comes to like good athletes in America, and it's Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah, it's definitely fishy that out of all those people, the combined total doesn't even equal what they paid Kawhi Leonard allegedly. So this seemed like one of those crypto things, those crypto scams where they'll pay certain people to repost a coin. Then all of a sudden, when people buy in, the coin, the price goes up, then they rug pull everybody. The people that own the coin, they're gonna, make out like bandits, and then they just pay these people, 50,000 here, 100,000 here, just to promote the coin on their social media. So this definitely seems like a company that is a scam, and it's unfortunate if it is true. Kawhi Leonard, fell for the mousetrap, got caught up allegedly, and gonna be exposed and put out there for that $28 million no job sponsorship.
And this was a company that was funded to the tune of $50 million by Steve Ballmer, another Harvard graduate, and the owner, of course, the richest owner in all of sports. And so we have documentation, we have 7 sources, we have a source voice modulated on tape, kind of whispering some facts into your ear if you listen on YouTube or as a podcast. It's a story that's an 80-minute documentary we made, and it's crazy. It's actually a crazy thing to sort of pour through.
Is there any proof at all that Kawhi Leonard did any work at all to earn that $28 million? Anything other than basketball, play basketball for the Clippers?
Which he's only kind of done, I would argue, the basketball part.
Throwing shots.
That's my favorite part, is that typically in a story like this, you say, okay, there's no evidence, and that's a problem. Here, the absence of evidence is kind of the evidence.
Yeah, by Kawhi Leonard, not doing any commercials, not doing anything on social media promoting the company, that's going to be a red flag. Mostly you would want to see that to kind of back up claims like, is this individual actually promoting the company? What really happened with that money? Did he sign a deal and not get paid yet? That's kind of highly unlikely. If I sign a deal for $28 million, I'm either going to need that up front or annually, or however you got to break it down. But I would assume if this was signed in 2021 allegedly, and it's 2025, he should have got at least most of that money or all that money. So again, that's a red flag by Kawhi Leonard not promoting his company.
He was signed to a $28 million endorsement contract and did nothing. Nobody has proof of anything that he did. Zero things, no likes, no retweets, no posts, no tree plantings. This was a company that was supposed to plant trees to zero out your carbon footprint and help save the planet. Kawhi did nothing that anyone could find. There's no evidence on the internet anywhere.
Yeah, Kawhi could at least plant some trees, do something, repost something on social media, a website. You got to at least make it look real. If you're allegedly going to scam and do a no job for the most part, at least make it believable. By him not making it believable, by him being that silent character, it's really playing into where, this could be something that he knew about and didn't really want it to be put out there in this way. So shout out to Pablo Torre for exposing this alleged scam.
And that, to me, feels like all of the evidence you need in terms of this being a no-show job. If you're an endorser of something, I would argue.
Pablo, part of the gall of this scam is the stupidity of it. Wouldn't it have been extremely easy just to have Kawhi film a couple of PSAs endorsing this whole project instead of doing absolutely nothing?
Trolling.
It's a great question that Calais Campbell has just asked, I believe. Because who just asked that question? It's a really good question. There's sloppiness in this. There's sloppiness all over the place because, yes, all you had to do was do a couple of things. But this is the legend, right? Like people are saying, you're snitching on Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard, to me, is not the villain of the story. Kawhi Leonard is maybe the most clear-cut example of a straight-up capitalist, right? Board man gets paid. Dude wants money. Dude doesn't want to work. He wants to get paid. And so Kawhi Leonard could have done some of that stuff to give everybody plausible deniability. He preferred not to. He signed a deal in the contract, which we have. We have the signed and executed endorsement contract. And it's Kawhi Leonard, his autograph, right next to the guy who turns out to be, by the way, the youngest speechwriter in White House history for Bill Clinton, Andre Cherny, the co-founder of Aspiration. In that contract, he has outs that our pal David Sampson poured over, in which you clearly see Kawhi was also not obligated to do anything. They just didn't count on people like me, I guess, ever caring enough to follow the clues down the rabbit hole and find out that, oh, wait, this was a job that required you to do nothing and you did nothing. And so that feels like a problem.
Yeah, again, bad look for Kawhi. This is the time where he could have just made a social media channel just to really put different stuff out there like this. If you're going to endorse a company, you got to make it look real. You can't just collect the bag and then fall back with your feet kicked up. You just got $28 million and you're good. So again, by Kawhi Leonard having this personality, I don't understand why a company would even pay him $1 to really put out a product. Him playing on the court is good, but if he's not available a lot and then you're paying someone $28 million, that's why people are saying this could have been a backdoor deal with Steve Ballmer allegedly. So we maxed out as far as what we can pay out players. Go ahead and sign for $28 million with this scam company and you'll go ahead and get your full money that you wanted from us. So that's why the red flags are being seen that Steve Ballmer, Kawhi, they're up to no good allegedly.
Gotta want to learn, gotta want to earn.
Kawhi don't want to learn. Kawhi don't want to earn.
Pablo, if they did what what Calais Campbell was suggesting, which is just a little thing here or there for Kawhi to do, wouldn't that, if I could check the counterpoint, wouldn't that have then tipped someone off to this endorsement he's doing, and then maybe we would have found out that Ballmer was funding, and of course it's like, hey, the bell rings that, wow, that's probably not a good thing for the salary cap.
Good point by Zaslow. If they did promote the company, Kawhi, whatever he had to do, social media, plant trees, whatever, that could have tipped off like, you know what? This isn't a real company. It would have got exposed as being a scam 4 years ago. So again, another red flag, another X on Steve Ballmer. Like, you're supposed to be this great businessman, one of the top 5 richest people in the world, but you fell for the scam just because you wanted to allegedly add some more money for Kawhi Leonard playing on your team. These type of practices are going to get exposed. It's been going on behind the scenes for many years, but now teams, players, however, they got to make sure they delete their steps. And you know what? Let's make sure we understand what we're doing because people like Pablo Torre are going to expose us.
Yeah, that's also, logical question. Now, the thing about this story, though, is that aspiration, while totally obscure until really like it goes viral this morning, they were announced to be the 23-year, $300 million plus founding sponsor of the Intuit. They were announced. We have press conference footage of Steve Ballmer sitting next to Joe Sandberg, the guy who has now pled guilty to 2 counts of wire fraud, by the way, and a 9-figure fraud as investigated by the DOJ and now still the SEC. So this was out there. It's just that nobody knew Kawhi was working for them. But Zaz, to your point, like the reason I found out about this is because in the bankruptcy filing, because the company has of course collapsed and it's into disgrace and financial ruin. In the bankruptcy filing, you see the list of creditors, and buried there, which was publicly available, by the way, was this line item that said $7 million outstanding to KL2 Aspire LLC. And I looked up what that was in the California Secretary of State database, and it was, Kawhi Leonard's LLC.
So it looks like if it's 7 million outstanding, did he get paid 28 million? So again, when you got people like Pablo Torre, this is what he does best. He's doing this investigation thing. He's going to iron out every single line item. So by your company pretty much going bankrupt and being exposed, this information is going to be put out there. So again, Steve Ballmer, if you knew something was up allegedly, you should have tried to save this company. You should have put in more than the 50 million you invested. You probably should have put in 500 million because you don't want this type of story out there, even if it was good and honest, just by it being Kawhi Leonard, by him being that silent star. It's always going to look bad when this stuff comes out, and you got people like Pablo Torre that are going to expose it.
Interesting. I then Google, did he ever do anything for Aspirate? Because I'd never seen that. And it's weird to have Kawhi Leonard as one of your top endorsers. And there was nothing. And at that point, that's when I'm like, something doesn't add up here. And it turns out a lot didn't add up for anybody.
Definitely
Pablo,
not.
this is a bombshell at the foot of the NBA right now, and the commissioner. What do you imagine the repercussion might be of this story?
Yeah, I mean, this is the parlor game that I find absolutely fascinating, because Steve Ballmer, to reiterate, has denied any wrongdoing, didn't know about any of this, says it's provably false. I await the proof, frankly, but nonetheless. Steve Ballmer is the richest owner, not just in the NBA, but all of sports, right? He's the good guy who saved the Clippers from noted racist Donald Sterling. He has Barack Obama sitting courtside. All of this stuff means he's both powerful and a good spokesperson for the league that wants to be on the good guy side of things. But yet you have this other dynamic where Steve Ballmer, who paid for the Intuit Dome with personal private money, no public funds, right? Great on him. He has spent so much money to expand his front office because that's uncapped. Here you have the problem of why Adam Silver called in 2019, according to the Athletic report on the investigation, a cardinal sin of alleged cap circumvention, in which the NBA, per that report, had outlined possible consequences: forfeiture of draft picks, $1 million plus fines, at the most extreme end, the nullification of contracts for the players whose salaries were circumvented. So I go back to history and I'm like, what's the last time this happened? And the only analogous case in terms of documentation and salary cap circumvention was the Minnesota Timberwolves, Joe Smith, which I don't know if anybody in the container even remembers, but Joe Smith and Glenn Taylor, the owner of the T-Wolves, had worked out a side deal. And it was written on paper because they were afraid Glenn Taylor was going to die before the completion of that contract. It's a total side, fascinating story.
But this has the potential to be the biggest salary cap crime that we've seen.
Yes, $28 million. And that, by the way, for the T-Wolves in that era, in the 90s, 5 first-round picks, suspensions for the owner of the team, for Glenn Taylor, as well as other punishments down the line. But this has tied into, again, an ongoing SEC DOJ investigation into fraud by this green bank, this climate change friendly company, whose biggest investor, or at least the most important, influential, notable investor, was Steve Ballmer, who put in $50 million of his own money. I mean, this is not merely a story about cap circumvention. This is now a question that the 7 sources I spoke to are asking. What else did Steve Ballmer know about?
Again, bad luck. by Kawhi, Steve Ballmer, their business group, whatever the case may be, being mixed in with this company when you're Steve Ballmer, one of the richest people in the world. I'm sure he has some L's business-wise, but you can't have an L when you're dealing with the NBA, when if things become public, it's going to be a stain on your franchise and you as a businessman. Now, as far as the penalties, millions of dollars, fines, and losing draft picks, I don't really think he cares about that if this were to happen. Now, the Kawhi Leonard contract being null and void or whatever the case may be, does that mean that he's going to become a free agent? Does that mean you have to re-sign him? So I want to know what that means as far as Kawhi Leonard's contract if they're found guilty with this alleged scam. So either way, bad look. You can't do this. If you're going to do things behind the scenes, at least make it look believable. Again, shout out to Pablo Torre for exposing this alleged scandal with Kawhi Leonard and Steve Ballmer.